Hey, Jessica, I tasted the dish you prepared and it was shockingly bad, completely inedible. Stop serving such food, please. I was so shocked that I threw it all away. Hurry up and redo it, okay? Got it? These harsh words were hurled at me by my mother-in-law, who seemed to enjoy mistreating her daughter-in-law. However, this behavior would significantly impact the future relationship between me and my mother-in-law. My name is Jessica. I am 30 years old and currently working in a small design office, fulfilling my long-held dream of being a designer. My husband's name is Noah, and he is 35 years old. We met when I was a student working part-time at a family restaurant of a major group where Noah was employed. Now, Noah works as the manager of that family restaurant. By the way, Noah is the son of a family that manages a major restaurant group. Consequently, Noah is naturally expected to take on the role of a future leader, consolidating the management of the group. For my mother-in-law, the status of Noah being the future successor was a matter of immense pride and a source of boasting. I lost my mother at a young age and was raised by my father alone. When I married Noah, my mother-in-law, who couldn't accept that I was raised by a single parent, strongly opposed our marriage. To her, my background and status were considered lower than hers, and she thought of my joining the family as a blemish. As a result, I was often ignored by her. However, about a year ago, my design was chosen for the menu at the restaurant managed by my father-in-law, changing the dynamics. My mother-in-law, who had studied design in her youth, had made a proposal too. But when hers was rejected, she tried to hide her shock by saying, "Oh, I just wrote it as a trial." Being a professional designer, I found it absurd that my mother-in-law would compete with me. After losing to me, she took it as a personal defeat and started to mistreat me more openly. She frequently visits our home, criticizing and sneering at every small thing. "Jessica, what's this? There's so much dust behind the TV. You can't say it's cleaned. How were you raised to be so careless with cleaning? Living in such a dusty place, what if Noah gets sick? Jessica, you might be fine with a house full of dust, but Noah isn't used to living in such a dirty room." As soon as my mother-in-law arrived at our house, she immediately started checking around and began pointing out flaws and criticizing pompously. Watching this, both Noah and I were exasperated, thinking, "Not this again." "Mom, I cleaned that area," Noah replied, slightly irritated. "He always helps with the housework and is very reliable." "So, are you saying that being bad at cleaning is due to poor upbringing?" he asked sarcastically. My mother-in-law was momentarily speechless, but quickly changed the subject and retorted, "Oh, so you're making Noah clean? Are you that high and mighty, Jessica? You prioritize your job over housework? But are you really valuing your family? I never neglected my duties both at work and at home." Even when Noah tried to intervene, my mother-in-law continued until I apologized. "I'm sorry, I'll try harder," and she would leave satisfied, saying, "As long as you understand." Noah had tried to address this behavior multiple times, but she never seemed to listen. Noah had talked to his father about his mother's behavior, but considering that nothing had changed, it seems his busy father hadn't taken the matter seriously. At first, I thought I could just tolerate these minor annoyances. I hoped that as she aged, my mother-in-law would mellow and change her ways. Little did I know that a major incident that would shake the family was about to occur. One day, Noah's cousin got engaged, and a celebration with the entire family was arranged. Not just family, but business associates were invited too, and a grand banquet was to be held at a high-end hotel's large hall. After hearing this from Noah, I also received a call from my mother-in-law on my smartphone. "Hello, Jessica. About the upcoming celebration, we're leaving most of the catering to the venue, but it's customary for each family to prepare the main dish. You said you're good at cooking, didn't you?" Her tone was a bit sarcastic, but it was true that I had mentioned being skilled in cooking since I had helped my father, who raised me alone from a young age. "I hope it's delicious because if not, you'll embarrass yourself in front of the relatives. Anyway, I'll leave the main dish to you." Before I could respond, she unilaterally concluded the conversation and hung up. I shrugged it off as usual, started adjusting my work schedule, and began planning the main dish for the celebration. Everything was going smoothly in preparation for the celebration. There was no interference from my mother-in-law, which was eerily quiet. On the day of the engagement party, my phone rang at 11:30 a.m. The celebration was scheduled to start at 1 p.m. I was honestly surprised to receive a call from my busy mother-in-law at that time. Confused but answering the call, she began speaking in an excited and high-pitched voice. "Hey, Jessica, I tasted the dish you prepared and it was shockingly bad, completely inedible. Stop serving such food, please." I was so shocked that I threw it all away. "Hurry up and redo it, okay? Got it?" Stunned by her loud voice, I managed to respond calmly. "What? Sorry, Mother. I'm currently at the office working." "What? Work? What are you talking about? The party starts at 1. There's no time. Just remake it." Something seemed off. Confused and unable to grasp the situation, I wondered if she didn't know that I had switched my task. Also, what did she mean by saying she threw away the dish I made? When I was assigned French cuisine, I had come up with a menu. But soon after, I received an important design job. I consulted Noah about what to do and decided to switch my cooking responsibilities with the invitation mailing duty. This change was supposed to be communicated to my mother-in-law by the original person responsible for sending the invitations, so I hadn't worried about it. I hurriedly tried to explain the situation. "Please listen, Mother. Actually, I had to drop the cooking task due to a sudden work assignment. I'm planning to head there after finishing work today." "Today? What? I don't understand. You were in charge of French cuisine, weren't you?" "No, I switched responsibilities, so I didn't actually cook anything." "What? What are you going to do now? There's no time left before the party starts. It's your fault for not reporting properly. Fix this, or I'll tell everyone you threw away the dish." Knowing I wasn't responsible for the dish, my mother-in-law became extremely agitated. Confused by her rapid-fire accusations, I was at a loss. Thinking about the complexity and trouble, yet concerned about being wrongly accused in front of many people. I wondered how to handle the situation. However, knowing my mother-in-law, it was quite possible she would blame me and pretend ignorance. Reluctantly, I apologized to my office for leaving early and hurried to the venue. Unfortunately, I arrived at the station just as my train was about to leave and ended up reaching the venue just after 12 p.m. Noah, who had been informed in advance through Messenger about the situation, hurried over to me as soon as he saw me arrive. However, his expression conveyed the worst-case scenario. "Oh no, am I too late? Right now all the dishes brought by everyone are here, but there's a commotion because the French dish is missing. When I went to the kitchen, I found that all the French cuisine had been thrown away and was clogging the sink. Everyone's in an uproar about what happened." As I listened to Noah, I headed towards the kitchen. There, the tension was palpable, as if those present had stumbled upon a crime scene. My mother-in-law, cornered by the tense situation, found me and began to accuse me by name. "Ah, look, the culprit has finally shown up. Jessica. It was Jessica who threw away this dish. She wasn't even here, which is evidence enough." I managed to suppress the headache that started throbbing as soon as she accused me. So suddenly around us were Noah's aunts, their sons, the recently engaged cousin and his fiancée Christina, along with many other relatives. Having been told by my mother-in-law that I was the culprit, their condemning gazes turned to me. But I decided to calmly present the facts. "Actually, I did not throw away this dish. That's a complete misunderstanding." However, my mother-in-law immediately retorted, "Don't play dumb. Don't lie to do such a thing at a celebration. Such ungrateful and senseless behavior is a disgrace to this family. I was at work this morning, so I have just arrived here." The people around us, upon hearing my story, began to murmur in surprise. "What? She just got here? Then who—" I hurried over to this venue after receiving a call from my mother-in-law. "I missed the train and was delayed in arriving. I apologize." "What, Jessica? What are you suddenly saying?" "But you told me on the phone that you had thrown away all the French cuisine." "My goodness, what are you saying? This daughter-in-law of mine, not only does she mock me, but now she's trying to pin her own wrongdoing on me and act innocent. How awful. Unbelievable." My mother-in-law dramatically played the victim, appealing to the surrounding relatives as if she were a hero struck by misfortune. To the relatives, it seemed more likely that my mother-in-law, who had been part of the family for over 20 years, was telling the truth rather than me, a recent addition to the family. I felt their condemning gazes again, but was determined to assert my innocence. "If you find it hard to believe, please call my workplace for confirmation. They can verify that I was working this morning, which will prove that what I'm saying is true." Just as I made this plea, a voice said, "There's no need to go that far." I had assigned Jessica a task. She graciously accepted the urgent work, and I'm truly grateful for her help. The voice belonged to my father-in-law. Behind him stood Noah with a relieved expression. Noah had asked his father to help reveal the truth. I was relieved to see my father-in-law there, as I thought he might be too busy to assist. The reliability of the family's future head was evident. The relatives who had been accusing me now looked flustered, and their suspicious gazes turned towards my mother-in-law. "So, Jessica, what exactly did my wife say on the phone earlier?" "Yes, she called to say she had tasted the French cuisine, found it very unpleasant, and said it was too embarrassing to serve. So she threw it all away. Then she told me to remake it before the time of the event." A murmur spread among the relatives upon hearing my testimony. Suddenly, a woman burst into tears amidst the crowd. The crying woman was Christina, the cousin's fiancée. "I admit I'm better at Asian cuisine, but I tried my best with the French dish too. I thought I had made it as delicious as the Asian one." Tearfully, she leaned on her fiancé. Christina, the cousin's fiancée, was the one who had switched duties with me. Although she was the main character of this celebration, she had confided her plan to surprise everyone with her cooking and asked me to keep it a secret from the relatives. But unexpectedly, even my mother-in-law was kept in the dark about the secret. Moreover, Christina was a professional chef at the French restaurant run by Noah's father. "Hey, Mom, you're saying Christina's cooking is bad? Christina is a chef I hired. Are you implying my taste is off too?" "What? No, that's not what I meant. I didn't mean it like that." My mother-in-law frantically tried to defend herself, but it was too late. Christina's culinary skills, recognized and respected by my father-in-law, were beyond doubt. "Always criticizing your daughter-in-law, maybe your taste has dulled. Perhaps you can't recognize real flavor anymore." His words, heavy with irony, echoed throughout the venue. My mother-in-law, in a desperate attempt to seek forgiveness, clung to my father-in-law and apologized profusely. However, anger seemed to rise within her, and suddenly she grabbed me by the collar. "Listen, I thought it was your cooking, so I threw it away. A dish made by a woman raised by a single parent of such low status is too disgraceful and tasteless to serve to others. I threw it away out of kindness. If I had known someone else made it, I wouldn't have thrown it away. It's all your fault. Fault. You planned this, didn't you? To embarrass me in front of our relatives. How much more will you mock me? Just stop it." I was shocked and disgusted by her yelling and the spit flying from her mouth. But then Noah's grandmother raised her voice. "Wait a minute. You know I'm a divorcee, right? You say being from a single parent is disgraceful. I heard that your late mother also lost her mother when she was young. By your logic, there are quite a few disgraceful people in this family, aren't there?" Her cold gaze pierced my mother-in-law. No, that's not what I meant. I didn't know, really. I swear, I didn't know." "Well, it doesn't matter anymore. We've all seen your true character." Hearing this, my mother-in-law collapsed on the kitchen floor, trembling with despair and fear. I heard there was a commotion, but what a scene this has turned into." Suddenly, a voice came from behind. Turning around, I saw an elderly man in a wheelchair. He was Noah's grandfather, the current head of the main family. I could hear the uproar from afar. It's unfortunate that a dish was wasted. I recall my late wife once telling me about receiving sweet potatoes during the war. The sweetness of the potato made her momentarily forget the sadness of losing her mother. As we all listened in silence to his words, Noah's grandfather continued, "Remember, food is filled with the emotions of those involved in making it. My late wife often said with a smile, 'The kindness of the cook has shaped who I am today.' Wasting food is the worst thing a person can do. Surely we don't have anyone that terrible in our family, right?" He then turned to my father-in-law. "Of course, Dad. We don't have anyone like that in our family." Satisfied with my father-in-law's response, the head of the family smiled and returned to the venue. His words held absolute authority. From the words of the head and my father-in-law, it was clear to everyone present that this was the moment my father-in-law decided to divorce my mother-in-law. What was supposed to be a celebration had also become a scene of an unexpected separation. In the kitchen, only the sound of my mother-in-law's sobbing lingered, creating an indescribable atmosphere. She not only ruined the celebration, but was especially condemned for her sacrilege against food. Despite being part of the food industry, she went around apologizing and bowing down to the relatives, including those from the Branch families. It seemed that the divorce settlement was agreed upon by deducting an amount for the damages caused at the celebration, leaving her with just a small sum. My mother-in-law was ousted from the main family and ended up living in a small apartment meant for singles. Cut off and criticized by the relatives, she led a lonely life with no one to turn to. She never imagined her petty jealousy and harassment towards her daughter-in-law, manifested in throwing away the food, would lead to her own downfall. On the other hand, I was able to protect the honor of my loving father. I also managed to build a harmonious relationship with Noah's family, and am enjoying fulfilling days.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look, "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day." Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. "So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, what's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. "Why is he so angry?" Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike. What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.